I think it was good news yesterday that you had in the morning window, Tennessee finalizing a contract extension with Tim Banks. That had kind of just hung out there for a little while, hadn't it? And Tim's name had at least been connected with other openings. That happens this time of year. What can you tell us about what went into getting that all worked out for Tim Banks to remain the defensive coordinator as he has been all 4 seasons that Josh Heupel's been Tennessee's head coach?
Josh Heupel always wanted Tim back as defensive coordinator. He believes deeply in Tim, and I think Tim, wanted to come back, but he had some other opportunities. I think there were some head coaching jobs at some smaller schools that he was a candidate for. I think most recently, Penn State was somebody that was, losing their guy to Clemson. Tim worked under James Franklin at Penn State, so that certainly was a real opportunity for him. But Tennessee had come to him and his agent during the season and made an offer. And, Tim was coaching this year without a contract. His contract was set to expire at the end of this year. And I think they just chose to wait, see what was out there. And not because he didn't necessarily want to come back to Tennessee, but last year your contract, it's rare that a coach coaches, certainly a coordinator in a place like Tennessee, coaches his last year without a contract. So that's the decision they chose to make. Listen, Tim did a great job, and anybody and I've seen and heard from people saying, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that, and Georgia rolled it up against them. Without that defense, and it's not just Tim Banks, it's his staff, it's the players on that team, the way those kids developed, the depth they created, it's all the above. But without Tim Banks' defense, let's put it that way, Tennessee doesn't sniff the playoff this year. Doesn't even come close, because this was not a great offensive football team. And I don't think that's a revelation. So for Tennessee to get him back, I know the players like him, to play hard for him to come back to continuity on defense with his staff, the likes of Rodney Garner, those guys are great. Big news for Tennessee, and I think it's a good thing going forward. Now, bad news for Tim yesterday, or in the last couple of days, finding out that probably their best returning defensive player, Jamon McCoy, has an ACL, and he's going to be out for a while. I don't know, and I don't think they know. And speaking to people over there, when he'll be back, a lot of it depends on his rehab. But those are tough injuries, especially at that position, to come back from quickly. He's not going to be there at all in the spring practicing. Hopefully he can get back for part of the season. Does he get back for the very first game? I don't know. But when you have that type of injury, the biggest part after the rehab is gaining trust again in your knee at a position like cornerback, where you're stopping, you're starting, you're backpedaling. There's a lot of things there, but he is such a big part of their defense, and was such a big part of their defense, that having him, potentially not having him for part of the season, or not having him even at 100% to start the season, is certainly not the way Tennessee wanted to go into 2025.
Did they ever get close with Clemson, with Penn State? Was there ever a serious contender for Tim Banks at another school to be defense coordinator?
I don't know. Jason, I really don't claim to be a part of it, and I wasn't a part of those negotiations. So for me to speculate would just be that. I know there was some interest on all sides, and I think anybody in that position, whether you're you or me or Tim, when other people call, you're going to listen. He was making 1.5, but he was still way down the chart in terms of nationally relevant DCs, and even in the SEC. His new deal is going to take him to, I'm told, right around $2 million, maybe a little bit more than $2 million. So yeah, I think there was certainly some interest. I don't know that he ever had a hard and fast offer on the table. Hey, this is what it is. We want you to come. But clearly there were conversations, and he and his side decided to wait. And I don't think that's that unusual a lot of times for coaches. The unusual part here was probably the thing that was unique about Tim in his situation, is he went into this year without a contract. His contract was going to expire, and he wasn't the only one on that staff like that. But if you look around college football at the upper tier, top tier teams, it's not commonplace for a coordinator to be in the last year of his contract, coaching without a contract.
I mean, I guess it saves the school money and protects the school more, but from buyouts, and that's something Tennessee was like the leader in college football at one point. I mean, we paid Kevin Steele, and he didn't even coach a game. We was paying him. So, like, that's a good side of it. I guess the other side of it is coaches probably would want that security. What about the other coaches that coach without a contract? I know Willie Martinez last year got a 1-year extension. Any idea of what's going to happen with other coaches that coached on this season without a contract?
Yeah, I think they're still working through a lot of those things. You know, their sides, their camps, coaches' camps, in Tennessee. I know getting Tim done was a priority there on defense. They wanted to get that done because, again, his contract expires at the end of this month. But I'd say those are still sort of ongoing.
Gotcha.
Listen, the thing about Heupel, and Fulmer used to catch a lot of grief about this, is Josh believes in continuity. You're not there for charity. You don't want to just keep guys on because you've known them, you've worked with them for a long time. But he believes in continuity, and I think it's always the really, really good coaches are able to sort of step back and self-scout themselves and their staffs and what they've done. And I think that's still the process that Josh is undergoing right now. Hey, do we need to make changes? Do we need to do this? Do we need to shift, people around? And who are our priorities to bring back? And again, I don't want to repeat myself, but clearly bringing Tim back was a priority. And I think there's still Swain sort of undergoing that process.
We're talking to Chris Low from ESPN.com. There is one game to go in the college football season, the national championship game coming up between Ohio State and Notre Dame. It's pretty easy to kind of lay out why Ohio State would win, what the Buckeyes would do in trying to get there. What about Notre Dame to try to pull off the upset? What do you see in the game, and what do you see Notre Dame trying to do to get the win?
Yeah, I know I sound like a broken record, Josh. I said it the last 2 weeks. If Ohio State plays its best game, they're not going to lose. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame's not going to beat them. And I don't know that Ohio State played their best game last week against Texas, and they still won. So I feel the same way this week. I don't know that Notre Dame is as talented as Texas, but Notre Dame is playing. They sort of have that. They had that look in their eye. They sort of have that thing going on right now where they believe they're going to win. They've overcome so much. I said this earlier. I was on another show, and I don't know any team in America this year, really maybe the last couple of years, that has taken on more the mindset and mentality and resilience of their head coach than Notre Dame has with Marcus Freeman. I mean, from the time Marcus got the job, I think he lost his first 3 games. Remember, he coached in the bowl game after Brian Kelly went to LSU. Then he lost his first 3 games the next season. And immediately, there's all this, oh, man, is he ready for this job? He's so young. Is he the guy at a place like Notre Dame? Well, this year they lose their second game to Northern Illinois. It's like at home. How does this happen? And yet his team believes in him enough, and they're invested enough where they just sort of get themselves up off the ground. They get better every week. They improve. They hit their stride. They start blowing teams out. And now here they are in the national championship game. So there's a lot of belief in and around that program right now. And I think a lot of it, and it's not just Marcus, but he gets a lot of the credit because it's hard to get a team up after a loss like that. And they did. And listen, they've got injuries they've overcome all year long. I think that's another reason to be so impressed about not only this team, but the job he's done. And they've got more for this game in their offensive line. They're going to have to shift some guys around. Their left tackle got hurt. Notre Dame's going to have to force turnovers. They're going to have to make something happen in special teams. Certainly they can't turn the football over. And Ohio State's going to have to play comparable to the way it did when they lost to Michigan, which is sort of uncreative on offense, not be able to hit big plays. That's the thing that was impressive about Ohio State against Texas is Jeremiah Smith was a non-factor, 0, 1 catch, 3 yards, and they still found ways to move the football. And of course, they made the play on defense there at the end of the game that completely changed it. I think it's been a great story to see what Notre Dame's done. I'm not surprised that Ohio State's where they are. I thought they were the best team in the country when the season started. Now, it was dysfunctional the way they got to this point, but I was around that team for 2 straight weeks, and they got a lot of really strong core leaders on that team that came back for a reason. 4th-year seniors, 5th-year seniors, and it's hard for me to believe that they're going to get to this point after the gut-wrenching loss to Michigan, but they're going to get to this point and not be able to win this game and finish it out. They're just, I think, talent and depth and leadership, senior leadership this time of year always seems to rise to the forefront.
Yeah, I agree with you. Chris, before you go, Marcus Freeman, Steve Sarkisian, Dion, are we going to see any college coaches jump to the NFL?
You know, I thought at the end of the season that Dion was going to get a shot. And I know there's a lot of reports out there now that the Cowboys were offered the job, that he would take it. I personally think Dion would be really good in the NFL because I think he's smart enough to surround himself with people to do the things and coach that maybe it's not his strength, and the way he relates to players, and he's such a name. He brings instant credibility into any locker room. I think of all of those 3, I think Dion makes the most sense to me. Marcus is still so young, and you know, who knows? Gosh, if he wins national title in Notre Dame on Monday, do you think, well, if you've got a shot to go to the NFL, it's never going to get any better than it does to walk out of here at 30-something with a national title? What is Marcus, I think, 39 now? Go take your shot at the NFL. Well, you never say never. Coaches always want to prove they can do it at the highest level. But I think Marcus has got something going pretty good there at Notre Dame right now. So of those 3, I wouldn't be surprised to see Coach Prime coaching the NFL next year. I had my questions about him when he got to Colorado as a coach, and I think he sort of had to come in a little bit as a whirling dervish there early on, and he completely flipped that roster, caught a lot of flack. But, man, the job he did in taking that program from being completely irrelevant, I mean, it had 7 straight losing seasons, to relevant and doing what they've done the last couple of years, I think says a lot about his ability in this era of football to flip a program.